David, we've known each other for well, probably at least 20 years and worked on lots of projects together. But I guess times have never been tougher than they are now. Is that true? Is that a fair comment?
Yes, I think that is true. Certainly with the public expenditure caps earlier this year, so community links have been a very tough spring. But I think, like lots of people locally, we expect the next couple of years to be equally difficult. And for many of those with whom we work, because that's been a double whammy, because problems have increased for rising unemployment at the same time as services have diminished. And then we see lots of other things happening out there, increasingly ageing population, for instance, which have meant, I think, that the list of things that are moving at the moment, things that are changing and not changing for the better, is probably longer than at any time in my working life, and the issues are at least as deep, if not deeper.
Yeah. And is necessity the mother of invention? I mean, is that leading to more interesting, more radical solutions, do you think? Or must it inevitably do that?
Well, I think it will lead to some. I mean, I think as a society we need a more open discussion about what public expenditure should be spent on and the core things that I think should be publicly funded. And I don't think there's been the time to have that discussion. But I think out of these years will emerge some new models. But I hope that it won't mean that we abandon all that was good in the past, which at times has felt the way we're going. We mustn't throw babies out with bathwater.
I mean, we're here talking about square miles. I want to touch on a couple of those with you. I mean, you are working, as you have done for 33 years or longer, in the London Borough of Newham. You know, you're adjacent to this £1 billion project, internationally famous project of the Olympics, right on your doorstep. And yet you are facing massive cuts as an organisation that worked, from grassroots up for some considerable time. Now that obviously must create frustrations and tensions. I mean, just talk a little bit about that sort of adjacency to this massive international project that comes and goes like a big circus.
Yes, and I think although the Olympics is obviously very, very high profile, I don't think it is very different from what's going on in lots of the communities that are here today, in Liverpool, in Birmingham and elsewhere now, and over the years there have been very large-scale regeneration projects and significant investment both by government and from the private sector, cheek by jowl with areas of considerable poverty. And I think as a country we still haven't quite got it right in many places. In one or two we have, but in many places we haven't got it right how we connect up that prosperity with the community that lives there already. And so the built environment changes hugely, but the lives of the people who are close to it are very little. And I think that's the challenge in East London at the moment, where the Olympics, high profile though it is still only about 20% of the regeneration spend. So huge change there. Our challenge is to ensure that we connect that change with the needs of local people.
And what happened with Canary Wharf? Because you're also in the shadow of that, another earlier massive investment.
Yes, I think the positive answer to that is that lessons must be learnt from it. I think that it in a sea of, that was pretty much the same as it was when they arrived. And I think a number of the larger businesses, well, all the businesses, in fact, a number of those businesses in Canary Wharf have made strides forward in trying to make links with the community in more recent years, but I don't think it happened at the beginning. And I think there's still we could do a great deal more to make that happen now.
And you've had very good relations and support, and done very well, I suppose, in the Square Mile, which is the City of London. What do you think, I mean, a very big, broad question, but what should the City of London and what should the world of business be doing now in this time of crisis?
Yes, we are fortunate to be relatively close to the city and also in the shadow of Canary Wharf, where there is considerable prosperity. I mean, that also has to be set against the fact that the East London boroughs have traditionally been one of the poorest areas in the country. But I'm not sure that it is those really big businesses that are necessarily the most important players in all this. And I think although many of them have got a high profile in their community involvement, I think our history suggests to me that some of the medium-sized and small local businesses are at least as important, if not more important. And in fact, as a proportion of the size of the business, size of the workforce, size of the turnover, do at least as much, if not more, than some of those bigger names who supplement their CSR budget with a bit of marketing spend as well, and make sure that the whole world knows all about what they're doing.
Yes.
Those who find their light under a bushel sometimes are doing rather more. So I absolutely think that small and local businesses are at least as important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, just to echo that, I think what we've discovered in a lot of the Square Mile pilot areas is exactly that it's small and local businesses that can do the most. And I think small local charities in many ways, or small to medium-sized charities, are the ones who are really tackling the tough, ingrained social problems that, as you say, all this massive infrastructure spending, despite being welcome sometimes, has not solved. And I think it's small local businesses working with them, providing things like, very practical support like building management, a space to go, IT support, helping with business plans, legal and accountancy help. That's exactly the kind of practical help that they need. And this kind of union of small local businesses and small local charities, if we could encourage that as many square miles of the UK as possible, it would be fantastic.
Well, and of course it is a community that belongs to us all. I mean, we wear different hats at different times. Many of us work in local organisations and we benefit from them as well. Whatever we do in the day job. So it's one community.
And I think that raises another very good point, which is, and you've been very good on this subject over the years, but I think this sort of vague do-goodism that people have expected through time will bring many members of the community in, or some sort of sense that you need to be a community type of person, and some stereotype of what good community means. Actually, good community, as you say, is lots of things. It's thriving businesses, thriving local shops, markets, arts, leisure, all sorts of things, which are the very lifeblood of what we love most. It's not this sort of dull, worthy thing that sometimes it's been painted.
And as you see today, I mean, just to say it's not us, it's not me, this kind of gathering. What do you mean by that? You look around the people here today. There's young and old, all sorts of different backgrounds, and I think that is the beauty of the work that we're engaged with. It does involve everybody. There's no reason why it shouldn't.
Talk to me about boundaries. I mean, you've used this phrase "permeable boundaries," which I think is very powerful. Just elucidate on that a little bit.
Yes, in my remarks in a moment, I'm going to be recounted the story of the teacher who talks to the children about the equator, and she says it's an imaginary line around the middle of the earth. And the story goes about the child who thought she said it was an imaginary lion in the middle of the earth. And I think too often we think about lines around communities as boundaries, as controlled by lions. And certainly in our community and other inner city communities now, there's a real fear amongst young people about crossing those boundaries. It's not just a lack of knowledge, but a real fear. And that's a very alarming trend indeed. And I think we've got to build communities in ways that people feel a real sense of identity and ownership and cohesion around that which is close to them. But at the same time, those boundaries are welcoming and porous, and we feel able and excited by crossing them. And we don't think that they are patrolled by lions. They really are imaginary lions.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, the work, I think some of the most difficult and interesting that we've done with Your Square Mile is talking to people about defining areas. And what is interesting is that you get a workshop of 70 very, very diverse people, as we have done in 16 areas now. And actually, they can agree very, very clearly and quickly what is the neighbourhood. It stops at that arterial road, it must include that school, it must have that park. And I think what's important is we're trying to establish several thousand local democracies, local square miles. The people themselves describe, they name, they own, it becomes our square mile, Weavers, Newham, whatever it might be, our square mile. But, as you say, it has permeable boundaries in the sense that they can work with the areas next door, and also they can exchange ideas. And that's something else I wanted to just ask you about, because you've done for years, Community Links has been brilliant at these sort of ideas annuals. I know you don't do them anymore because there's so much else going on, but the exchange of ideas between voluntary sector organisations throughout the UK. Say a bit about that. I mean, it doesn't happen as much as we might expect, does it? And there's a room for a lot more.
There is room for a lot more. And wanting to develop them, but I think we can also learn much more than we do from and I think funders have a part to play in that as well, in constantly looking for the new, which means that even when an idea isn't particularly new and we know that it isn't, we try to pretend that it's new in order to attract some funding for it, and that's incentivising entirely the wrong things. I think we need to look at what works, we need to share that, and we need to adapt it to work in our community. And in the end, it probably will end up looking a little bit different from what happened in other places, but that sharing is critical. And we that it is some way second rate to say this idea came from somewhere else, and it works here.
I agree.
That's terrific.
And what's interesting that is, and you touched on it there, is adapting. Because I think what's happened in the past is that governments have been quite guilty of this, is they find something that works and they immediately want to industrialise it. It's just, we want 100 kids companies or whatever. And you can't, because there aren't 100 Camillas. What you can have is you can take the tools and the learning of Kids Company or brilliant projects, and then encourage local leaders to take it up and do it their way. And I think that's very important. One final question: what would you most like to see emerge from Your Square Mile as a movement? What would matter most to you? Who's worked at the coalface of communities for so long.
I think to think about the strengths of our communities and we develop those strengths. I think too much thinking on some of the communities here today and
certainly in our communities in East London, has been focused on the negative. I think my vision of a strong community is one where people are ready to go to school at 5, they're ready to succeed in secondary at 11, they're ready for work at 18 or 20, ready to be parents when the time comes. And because bad stuff happens too, we're ready to cope with bereavement or with losing our jobs from time to time. Ready for everything is I think, the kind of community in which I want to live. And I think, how do we develop those strengths so we don't then need crisis services that try to put the pieces back together when it's all fallen apart? That's a crazy way to work, and it's an expensive way to work for the wider society. It's painful, it's traumatic for everybody, and it's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And in order to do that, and my fervent hope is that Square Mile can create very rich ecosystems, whatever you want to call them, of local people who, that we develop new habits in a sense, and we start thinking that if we're using, for example, social networking tools, that we use them locally first and foremost. All of these things that we've now got at our disposal, they should be there to provide a local exchange of resource and time, and that people see their community as something that is a huge resource that they're not taking enough. So there's a kind of selfish opportunity in a way, positively selfish opportunity, as well as giving more. Rather than it being this rather po-faced thing, it is something that's inspiring and uplifting and empowering to people.
Good.
Good to talk.
Good luck.
Thank you.